Confused Reviews, where Cartoon Drawing reviews movies, and if you're a longtime viewer of the show, you know I'm a huge fan of the Dukes of Hazzard, and being that I've done episodes on both the movie adaptations, I feel like it's now time to talk about my favorite episodes, the best story arcs, character moments, and of course, the best car jumps. So today, I'll be counting down the top 10 best Dukes of Hazzard episodes. And before we start, I love the Dukes of Hazzard, and I've seen every episode numerous times, and aside from a few questionable ones, there aren't that many that I consider to be all that terrible. To me, this is like having to pick my 10 favorite kids out of the 150 I have. Man, that was a weird analogy. Plus, this is my opinion, and these are the episodes I revisit most often. This is my love letter to a show that stuck with me all my life, and hopefully introduce newcomers, or suggest great episodes to casual fans. So, without further ado, let's pull out the complete series, pop in these DVDs, and jump right into the list. Number 10. The Ghost of General Lee. After the General Lee is driven into a pond by some hustlers who stole it, Rosco and Enos presume the Duke boy's dead. Hazzard is then thrown upside down over the loss, while Boss hatches a scheme to swindle money out of it, saying that they stole a watch worth 20 grand. So to avoid more trouble, the boys and Cooter hatch a plan to scare Boss and Rosco to the point that they'll drop the false charges. I love this episode for the fact that it wasn't afraid to deal with heavy subjects like death, and also shows the heart of the town. Enos sees the crash and immediately jumps in to save them, as well as Rosco being heartbroken, telling Jesse about their passing, and admitting there was nothing personal about him constantly chasing the boys. It also has some hilarious moments of Bo and Luke trying to find clothes after they're stolen alongside the car. Plus, Boss's plan is rather clever, and the secondary villains were better than most. With all that said, it's a great episode that makes you laugh and cry, all within an action-packed hour.
You're gonna need help, Hoss.
He's got it.
Number 9. Daisy's Song. Daisy writes a song and sells it without receiving any royalties, so Bo and Luke try to get the money from the producers. It doesn't go well at all, and ends in a raid of the studio. So instead, they steal the record and uncover that they're actually running a piracy operation. So the boys have an RV of chicks distract them, and they then blow up the phony operations headquarters in a slew of laughter. This episode has a fantastic chase scene that leads to an escape, and I'd say it's one of the best of the series. It also brought up the series' very first hood slide, and it's very glorious. The sleazy villain teaming up with Boss Hogg was one of the biggest strengths of the episode, and to me, the best thing it does is that it's different. It deals with the dark side of making and selling music, and it's nice to see the karma the villain gets after he scams Daisy out of her dream. Overall, this is one of the founding episodes that establishes Hazzard for what it is, a kick-ass time.
I made the richest man in Hazzard County, the poorest in the state.
Number 8. $10 Million Sheriff. Roscoe's last nerve is tested, being the laughingstock of Hazzard, as he then receives a family inheritance of $10 million, and does what every simple man does after gaining a large sum of money. He spends most of it on useless junk, including a private investigator, Jason Steele, who looks like Charles Bronson, who he hires to hunt down the Dukes. Meanwhile, Boss challenges Roscoe for a duel of all their riches, and he loses. And as part 1 ends, Uncle Jesse falls and hurts himself, while Boss has become the unthinkable, Roscoe's deputy. Anyways, after a long search, they find Steele and almost get him, but Roscoe starts rethinking his choice to frame them, but it's too late, as following an elongated chase, turns out Steele swapped out the general for a fake, and take them away. Just for Roscoe to find out he only inherited $10. Kinda awkward considering they kidnapped the sheriff instead, and the Duke boys have to save him, and do after a classic punch-out. And everything goes back to normal. This episode is awesome for the fact that it's got a much longer runtime, leading to a heavily developed story and more going on at the same time, and more car jumps, which is always a plus. Roscoe's Rolls-Royce sheriff's car is the best thing ever, and Steele is definitely one of the series' best foes, seeing him stop at nothing to get the Dukes. And one of the strongest pluses is that Jesse's injury creates a great motivation to find and stop Steele.
You're just lucky that we're in Uncle Jesse's house, that's all.
Because we can always step outside.
Number 7. Carnival of Thrills. The 3rd season starts off with a bang as the Carnival stunt show invades Hazzard, and a pretty con artist convinces Bo to jump 32 parked cars. Luke is not happy about it and gets the general impounded, leading to the Dukes and Cooter having to go save it. Part 1 ends with Bo socking Luke, which obviously winds up creating an awesome fistfight, and the entire Duke family is thrust into tension and anarchy. After a while of fighting, turns out it was all a scheme by a carny who cuts the gas line on all previous cars, including the general. So Luke tackles the guy, fixes the line, and ends with Bo making a fantastic, death-defying jump. For one, the junkyard fight scene is really fun, especially considering Cooter even jumps in on it. And little moments like Bo going to jump in to help the crash victim shows that he's willing to help anyone. And finally, the family dividing over Bo's choice is a good hook and makes for another great 2-part episode.
I am more than ready.
Number 6. Too many Roscoes. I was debating on choosing Baba White Sheep because any episode that makes an actor become a completely different character almost always makes me love it, but seeing James Best do a complete 180 and acting as a heartless villain is fantastic. A group of generic baddies try to steal money being transported to Hazzard, but one gets surgery to look identical to Roscoe's, and after they kidnap him, the boys assume he drowned, making the identity swap easy. But when the fake Roscoe's lack of town lore leads to him being taken to the hospital, the copycats get away easily and steal the money. Therefore, the boys have to get it back. So they give the bad guys some excellent karma, making them crash into the lake. And all is well once again. Well, except the guy who got surgery to look like Roscoe forever. And whatever, for starters, this is James Best's finest hour. Watching him play a kind goofball alongside a heartless bad guy is genuinely charming, and shows his acting chops. And just like in The Ghost of General Lee, even though Roscoe and the boys are enemies, they still jump into the lake to save him without hesitation. And who doesn't love Roscoe sitting in the back of the General Lee with the Duke boys?
Y'all pay real close attention, because we're about to play musical chairs.
Number 5. Jude Emery. In this setup for a cancelled spin-off, a bounty hunter named Jude Emery comes to Hazzard in search of a bad guy named Snake, because snakes. So, doing the most Hazzard thing around, they whip up a car hiding spot and Cooter helps Daisy follow the boys, creating a 5+ car chase, including the boys racing some creepy guy named Patch, followed by Snake's number 2 called Willie, and behind them is Sheriff Grady Bird, who we'll get to in a moment, and Daisy. But Snake put one of his own in the General, and Patch winds up bumping their bumper to disturb the reptile, but they do win, easily. Soon the gang and the boys meet up for some Texas arm wrestling, which has super poisonous cacti, but Daisy crashes in to stop it. The next morning, it's Luke and Bo versus Patch and Snake, but Jesse and Cooter did the same hidden backseat thing Cooter did earlier in the episode and throw out Patch and pack into a purple car to jump out of Hazzard, leading to Jude taking away Snake forever. So for starters, you may be asking who in the jellified hell is Grady Bird? Well, in Season 2, James Best felt his treatment on the show wasn't that of what he deserved, which was the world, because, come on, Roscoe makes the show. But he ended up being replaced for a few shows because he walked off. There were a handful of imitators, and I think Dick Sargent really tried his best and is fine for the episode, but Best is very missed. It does, however, once again, have fantastic chases and a great finale, and Jude adds a nice outsider-looking-in perspective to the show. And pair that with, in the end, the boys team up with Grady and the law to stop the gang, makes for a really enjoyable episode.
Would you just hush up so I can hear myself talk?
Number 4. Welcome back, Bo and Luke. Oh boy. Let me start off by saying, I don't hate Coy and Vance. Now, to some, they're as bad as the boys in the prequel movie, but I don't mind them. And I feel bad for them getting lampooned, but at least they did take part in this fantastic episode. Bo and Luke return after winning the NASCAR circuit, and there was definitely no behind-the-scenes drama that led to them leaving in the first place, and Coy and Vance hightail it out of the show forever. Meanwhile, Boss and Roscoe are destroying Cooter in hopes of evicting him to make room for a shopping center. The mental anguish makes Cooter snap at the boys, and they try to figure out what happened. Then an old racing buddy named Willis asks for the boys' help for a comeback race. But at the same time, all of Cooter's recent fixes go AWire. But it turns out a shady character tampered with Willis's car, leading to an accident and making Cooter look awful. The trauma causes him to practically quit life, as he goes to live off in the mountains. But the Dukes uncover the mistake done deliberately by Joey, and after realizing it, they do an improved hood slide and chase after him. They find him and continue the chase onto an old train, and after some slick maneuvers, they punch him out and off the decommissioned train. It all ends with everything back to normal after 19 shaky episodes. Now for starters, it's really sweet seeing all 4 Duke boys share the spotlight for a scene. I do, however, wish Coy and Vance stuck around for the whole episode and helped Bo and Luke on the adventure. But regardless, it's some of Ben Jones's best work, and he's really good here, trying his best to keep his head up after being constantly beaten down. Roscoe and Enos taking a car bath is also awesome, and one last thing, this handshake melts my heart.
What are you doing?
I'm welding the doors shut.
What are you doing that for?
Well, you weld the doors shut on a racing car for safety's sake.
Number 3. Happy birthday, General Lee. To kick off the show's final season, we celebrate the General's birthday by going back to see how it all started. In Capital City, a couple robs a jewelry store in a familiar Charger and fills it with gold dust. And they then immediately crash it, get it impounded, and themselves arrested. In order to compete in Boss's annual race, they snatch up said black Charger, and over at Cooter's, our favorite orange car is underway. And since Boss is nosy, they try catching a glimpse, but ends up with him dropping in instead. After that, they're attacked by the Bonnie and Clyde rejects, and as they escape, the boys go into a full-swing workfest, getting the car into racing shape. Oh, and ironically enough, the reason the General Lee is the orange we all know and love today is purely due to Cooter's lack of paint, and I kind of love that explanation. They get chased again, and reuse the series jump that they like to use the most, because it's awesome. They make it to the race, and Boss quickly takes the lead. As the General tries catching up, they discover the gold dust, but no time for that. They toss the model General Lee over Boss's car, winning the race, as well as starting a legacy that will never be beaten. Now, let me get the obvious out of the way. This is how you do a Dukes of Hazzard prequel. Not this! It's also cute seeing where our favorite Georgia residents came from, and works very, very well. Oh, and, Snake Harmon is back, playing a different character. Pretty odd.
Welcome to Hazzard County.
Number 2, One-Armed Bandits. You can't get much better than the pilot episode. Starting off the series strong, it establishes Bo and Luke Duke as the system-fighting, authority-challenging country boys we all know. It starts right off with the boys in a chase scene, but them chasing the sheriff's car. Turns out it was Cooter who stole it, and as they discover slot machines in the back, we bounce over to meet Boss and Rosco. The boys have a little race with the Zebra 3 included. All they needed was Kit, the Fall Guy truck, and the red Ferrari, and they would have been set. But they find the truck transporting the shady slots and steal it from JD. They begin distributing them and donating the money to a local orphanage that's run by a girl Bo has a thing for. The boys ensure Rosco is re-elected through the slot machine gimmick, and in the end, they save the kids' home, and Rosco will continue to be sheriff for 7 seasons to come. Almost. It's great seeing where the boys started off, and it's really enjoyable to see their first little wacky antics that started the show and got it distributed to begin with. The police station escape scene is really sweet, seeing how the boys can escape from just about anywhere and also establishing Enos as the kind boy next door. And this episode established the characters that would eventually become a phenomenon.
We're in trouble, cuz. Well, why should today be any different?
And the number 1 Dukes of Hazzard episode is Dukes Meet Cale Yarborough. Now this is a Dukes of Hazzard episode. The Dukes have another casual escape from Rosco, but when they accidentally leave Hazzard, they find NASCAR driver Cale Yarborough, who's trying out a turbocharger for the Illinois 500. Ironically enough, on the same track that would eventually be used in the Carnival of Thrills episode. But at the same time, the Jethro brothers roll into town in hopes to find said turbocharger. Cale recruits the boys to help him with fixing up the car and whatnot when they meet Cooter at the Boar's Nest, and the Jethro brothers inform Boss of the sought-after item, which of course he obviously wants, and the boys rush Cale out of Dodge, but everywhere they go, Rosco is somehow already there, until they discover that the General was bugged, and they deal with that very hilariously. They regroup at Cooter's and hatch an awesome plan. Paint Cale's white Charger as well as another conveniently mentioned third Charger to all look like the classic orange. They all make chase, and Jesse fools Boss, Daisy gets Enos, and the boys are chased by Rosco until the 3 meet up for what might be the most glorious jump in the show's history. I mean, look at the final frame before they cut. That car is destroyed. And in the end, Cale wins the Illinois 500 and the Jethro brothers come in last. And it all ends in a happy freeze frame. I love everything about this episode. I love that everyone on the cast has something to do, the greasy Jethro brothers are creepy side villains, and Boss is great as always. Cale was a celebrity cameo that felt warranted, and the finale is the best the series ever conjured. I mean, 3 generals all running around at the same time is a sight to behold. It's an exhilarating thrill ride with awesome jumps, a great story, and definitely is the best Dukes of Hazzard episode of all time. And that's the end of the list, and one I spent many, many hours constructing, and by that I mean I sat around watching the Dukes of Hazzard in the name of research. Anyways, if you'll excuse me, I've got to go get plastic surgery to look like a small-town sheriff, join a bounty hunter on his snake-filled escapades, and crash many, many, many orange Chargers. I'm Confused Reviews. Thanks for watching.